In the unforgiving mountains of Afghanistan, where the thin air plays tricks on even the most experienced marksman, a single bullet would travel farther than most people drive to work. The target was barely visible, a speck against the rocky terrain nearly 4 kilometers away. For most shooters, such a distance would be considered impossible, a fantasy reserved for video games and Hollywood movies. But on this particular day, as dust swirled around a makeshift firing position, one Navy SEAL would prove that the impossible was simply another challenge waiting to be conquered. The Barrett .50 caliber rifle weighed heavy in experienced hands, its massive frame designed for destruction at distances that would make ordinary soldiers shake their heads in disbelief. This wasn't just another mission or another shot. This was the moment when years of training, countless hours of practice, and an almost supernatural understanding of ballistics would converge into a single, perfect moment that would rewrite military history. What happened next would not only save lives in the immediate moment, but would also shatter every existing record for long-range precision shooting, setting a new standard that would be talked about in military circles for decades to come. This is the true story of how one person's extraordinary skill, unwavering focus, and split-second decision-making created a legend that continues to inspire and amaze people around the world. The scorching Texas sun beat down mercilessly on the rifle range, where Sarah Martinez first discovered her extraordinary gift. She was just 19 years old, a college student from a small farming town who had never imagined that her steady hands and sharp eyes would one day make military history. Growing up on her family's ranch, she had learned to shoot out of necessity, helping her father protect livestock from coyotes and other predators. Those early morning hunts had taught her patience, precision, and respect for the power of a well-placed shot. When Sarah decided to enlist in the Navy, her family was initially concerned. Her mother worried about sending her only daughter into harm's way, while her father, a Vietnam veteran himself, understood the calling that drove her toward military service. The local recruiting station had never seen test scores quite like hers, particularly in the areas of hand-eye coordination and spatial reasoning. Her recruiter, a seasoned petty officer who had seen thousands of young people come through his office, immediately recognized that Sarah possessed something special. Basic training at the Navy's boot camp in Great Lakes, Illinois, proved to be just the beginning of Sarah's transformation from small-town rancher to elite warrior. Her drill instructors quickly noticed her natural marksmanship abilities during weapons training. While other recruits struggled to hit targets at standard ranges, Sarah consistently scored perfect marks with seemingly effortless precision. Her calm demeanor under pressure and ability to maintain focus during chaos caught the attention of several special operations recruiters who began quietly observing her progress. The journey from ordinary sailor to Navy SEAL candidate was neither quick nor easy. Sarah had to prove herself in every aspect of military training, from physical fitness to mental toughness. The SEAL selection process was notorious for breaking even the strongest candidates, with dropout rates that would make most people reconsider their career choices. For months, Sarah endured punishing physical challenges, sleep deprivation, and psychological pressure designed to weed out all but the most determined individuals. During Hell Week, the infamous 5-day ordeal that tests candidates beyond their perceived limits, Sarah found herself drawing on lessons learned during those early morning hunting trips with her father. When exhaustion threatened to overwhelm her, she remembered sitting motionless in a deer blind for hours, waiting for the perfect moment to take a shot. When instructors screamed in her face and demanded impossible feats of endurance, she recalled her father's patient voice teaching her to breathe slowly and squeeze the trigger smoothly, no matter what distractions surrounded her. The specialized training that followed her acceptance into the SEAL program opened Sarah's eyes to possibilities she had never imagined. Advanced marksmanship courses introduced her to weapon systems that seemed almost futuristic compared to the hunting rifles she had grown up using. The Barrett .50 caliber rifle, in particular, fascinated her with its incredible range and devastating power. This massive weapon, originally designed for destroying equipment and vehicles at extreme distances, required a unique combination of technical knowledge and natural skill to operate effectively. Sarah's instructors were amazed by her ability to calculate complex ballistic equations in her head, accounting for factors like wind speed, air pressure, temperature, and bullet drop over vast distances. While other snipers relied heavily on computers and spotting scopes, Sarah seemed to possess an intuitive understanding of how these variables affected bullet trajectory. Her training records showed consistent accuracy at ranges that challenged even the most experienced marksmen in the military. The technical aspects of long-range shooting became Sarah's specialty. She studied the physics of ballistics with the same intensity that others might study for medical school exams. She learned how altitude affected air density, how humidity could alter bullet flight paths, and how the rotation of the Earth itself could influence shots over extreme distances. These weren't just academic exercises for Sarah. They were the building blocks of a skill set that would prove invaluable in combat situations. Advanced SEAL training took Sarah to various environments around the world, each presenting unique challenges for precision shooting. Desert conditions in Arizona taught her how heat mirages could distort targets and how sandstorms could affect visibility and weapon performance. Mountain training in Colorado showed her how thin air at high altitudes required adjustments to her calculations, while jungle exercises in Panama demonstrated the difficulties of maintaining equipment in humid, corrosive environments. Throughout her training, Sarah's reputation as an exceptional marksman continued to grow. Fellow SEAL candidates would often gather to watch her practice sessions, amazed by her ability to hit targets that seemed impossibly small and distant. Her instructors began using her performance as an example for other students, though few could replicate her level of precision and consistency. The psychological aspects of long-range shooting were perhaps even more important than the technical skills. Sarah learned to control her breathing, heart rate, and muscle tension to achieve the steady platform necessary for extreme accuracy. She practiced meditation techniques that allowed her to maintain focus for extended periods, even when under stress or in uncomfortable positions. These mental disciplines would prove crucial during actual combat operations, where a single missed shot could mean the difference between mission success and catastrophic failure. As her training neared completion, Sarah's instructors began preparing her for the realities of combat deployment. They emphasized that all the training in the world meant nothing if she couldn't perform under the intense pressure of real-world situations. The controlled environment of a training range, they warned, bore little resemblance to the chaos and uncertainty of actual combat operations where lives hung in the balance with every decision. Sarah's first assignment as a qualified SEAL took her to a specialized unit known for conducting high-risk operations in some of the world's most dangerous locations. Her team members, all seasoned veterans with multiple deployments, initially viewed the newcomer with the skepticism that all new arrivals faced. In the tight-knit world of special operations, respect was earned through performance under fire, not through training scores or recommendations from instructors. The months leading up to her first combat deployment were filled with team exercises designed to build trust and communication among unit members. Sarah learned to work seamlessly with spotters, communication specialists, and assault teams. She studied enemy tactics, weapon systems, and operational patterns. Most importantly, she learned to think like her adversaries, anticipating their movements and reactions to various tactical situations. During pre-deployment briefings, Sarah studied detailed maps and satellite imagery of the regions where her team would operate. The terrain was unlike anything she had encountered during training, with elevations and weather patterns that would challenge even her exceptional skills. The enemy forces they would face were well-trained, well-equipped, and intimately familiar with the local geography, giving them significant advantages that would need to be overcome through superior tactics and marksmanship. As her deployment date approached, Sarah spent countless hours on the range, fine-tuning her skills with the Barrett .50 caliber rifle that would become her primary weapon system. She memorized the ballistic characteristics of different ammunition types, practiced rapid target acquisition techniques, and rehearsed the complex mathematical calculations required for shots at extreme ranges. Every round fired in practice brought her closer to the level of mastery that would soon be tested in the most demanding environment possible. The final weeks before deployment were bittersweet for Sarah. She knew that the comfortable, predictable world of training was about to give way to the unpredictable chaos of combat. Her family worried about her safety, while her teammates prepared for yet another tour in hostile territory. For Sarah, it represented the culmination of years of preparation and the beginning of what would become a legendary military career, defined by one impossible shot that would change everything. The helicopter's rotor blades chopped through the thin mountain air as Sarah caught her first glimpse of Afghanistan's rugged landscape below. The terrain stretched endlessly in all directions, a maze of rocky peaks, deep valleys, and hidden caves where enemy fighters had been waging guerrilla warfare for decades. This was her first combat deployment, and despite years of intensive training, nothing could have fully prepared her for the reality of operating in one of the world's most dangerous conflict zones. Sarah's team was assigned to a remote forward operating base nestled in a valley surrounded by towering mountains. The base itself was a collection of prefabricated buildings, concrete barriers, and razor wire that looked almost insignificant against the massive landscape. The commanding officer, a grizzled colonel with multiple combat tours, briefed the new arrivals on the challenges they would face. Enemy fighters controlled much of the surrounding high ground, using the natural terrain to launch attacks on coalition forces and then disappear into networks of caves and tunnels. The first few weeks of deployment involved routine patrols and reconnaissance missions, designed to familiarize the team with local conditions and enemy tactics. Sarah quickly learned that combat in Afghanistan was unlike anything she had studied in training manuals. The enemy was patient, well-trained, and intimately familiar with terrain that gave them significant tactical advantages. They would often position themselves on distant ridgelines, sometimes several kilometers away, making it nearly impossible for conventional forces to engage them effectively. During these early operations, Sarah's exceptional marksmanship skills became apparent to her teammates and commanding officers. While other snipers struggled with the extreme ranges and challenging environmental conditions, Sarah consistently demonstrated the ability to engage targets at distances that seemed impossible. Her understanding of ballistics, combined with an almost supernatural ability to read environmental factors, allowed her to make shots that left seasoned veterans shaking their heads in amazement. The Barrett .50 caliber rifle proved to be perfectly suited to the Afghan theater of operations. Its massive bullets could penetrate body armor and light vehicles at extreme ranges, while the weapon's impressive accuracy made it ideal for engaging targets positioned on distant mountainsides. Sarah spent hours each day maintaining the precision instrument, cleaning every component with meticulous care, and ensuring that her optics were perfectly calibrated for the challenging shooting conditions. Local intelligence reports indicated that a particularly dangerous enemy commander had been operating in the region for several months. This individual, known only by his radio call sign, had been responsible for coordinating attacks that had killed numerous coalition soldiers. Intelligence analysts believed he was using a network of caves and observation posts scattered throughout the mountains to direct operations while remaining personally out of reach of conventional military responses. Sarah's team was tasked with locating and eliminating this high-value target through a series of carefully planned operations. The mission would require them to establish observation posts on various mountain peaks, sometimes for days at a time, watching for any sign of enemy activity. The physical demands were enormous, as they had to carry all their equipment and supplies up treacherous mountain paths while remaining undetected by enemy scouts. The first attempt to locate the target proved unsuccessful, though the team gathered valuable intelligence about enemy movement patterns and communication procedures. Sarah learned that combat operations required patience and persistence unlike anything she had experienced in training. Real enemies didn't appear on command, or follow predictable patterns like training scenarios. They were intelligent, cautious, and constantly adapting their tactics to avoid detection and engagement. During their second week in the field, Sarah's team established an observation post on a ridge overlooking a valley that intelligence sources believed was a key transit route for enemy fighters. The position offered excellent visibility over a vast area, but it also exposed the team to extreme weather conditions and the constant threat of discovery by enemy forces. For 3 days and nights, they maintained continuous surveillance while enduring bitter cold, high winds, and the psychological stress of remaining motionless for hours at a time. On the 4th day, their patience was rewarded when radio intercepts confirmed that the target would be moving through the valley later that afternoon. Sarah prepared her Barrett rifle with methodical precision, checking and rechecking every component while calculating the ballistic factors that would affect any potential shots. Wind speed was variable, the air was thin due to the high altitude, and the distances involved were at the absolute limit of what most military experts considered possible for precision shooting. The target appeared exactly when intelligence had predicted, but the situation was far more complex than anyone had anticipated. The enemy commander was traveling with a large group of fighters, and they had positioned themselves on the opposite side of a valley that measured over 3 kilometers across at its narrowest point. The distance to the target was beyond anything Sarah had attempted in training, requiring calculations so complex that most snipers would have considered the shot impossible. Sarah's spotter, a veteran sergeant with multiple deployments, initially expressed doubt about the feasibility of engaging at such an extreme range. The mathematics alone were daunting, requiring adjustments for air pressure, temperature, humidity, wind speed at multiple altitudes, the Coriolis effect caused by the Earth's rotation, and dozens of other variables that could affect bullet trajectory over such a vast distance. Most military manuals didn't even include ballistic tables for the ranges they were contemplating. As the enemy group began moving across the valley floor, Sarah realized that this might be their only opportunity to eliminate a target who had been responsible for numerous coalition casualties. The terrain and enemy security measures meant that conventional forces could never get close enough for a standard engagement. If they failed to act now, the target would likely disappear back into the cave networks where he could continue coordinating attacks against coalition forces. The pressure was enormous, but Sarah found herself drawing on every lesson learned during her years of training. She controlled her breathing, steadied her heart rate, and began the complex process of calculating the shot parameters. Her spotter provided wind readings from multiple points along the potential bullet path, while Sarah made minute adjustments to her scope settings and firing position. The Barrett rifle, weighing over 30 pounds when fully loaded, had to be supported perfectly to ensure the stability needed for such an extreme shot. Sarah's teammates watched in tense silence as she made her final preparations. The target was barely visible through her high-powered scope, appearing as little more than a distant speck, moving slowly across the valley floor. At such ranges, even the slightest error in calculation or execution would result in a complete miss. The bullet would take several seconds to reach its target, during which time the enemy fighter could move several meters in any direction. The wind conditions were perhaps the most challenging factor. At different altitudes along the bullet's trajectory, wind speeds and directions varied significantly. Sarah had to account for these variations while also considering how the bullet's velocity would decrease over the extreme distance, affecting its susceptibility to wind drift. The calculations required were so complex that most snipers would have needed computer assistance to attempt such a shot. As Sarah prepared to squeeze the trigger, she thought about all the coalition soldiers who had been killed or wounded by attacks coordinated by this particular enemy commander. She remembered the faces of teammates who had been injured during previous operations, and the families back home who were counting on military forces to eliminate threats before they could cause more harm. This shot represented more than just a display of marksmanship skill. It was an opportunity to save lives and strike a significant blow against enemy operations in the region. The moment of truth arrived as Sarah made her final sight adjustments and began the slow, steady trigger squeeze that had been drilled into her during thousands of hours of training. The Barrett rifle bucked against her shoulder with tremendous force, sending a massive .50 caliber bullet on a trajectory that would either make military history or serve as a reminder of the limitations of even the most skilled marksman. In the seconds that followed, as the bullet traveled across the valley at supersonic speed, Sarah and her teammates could only wait to see if years of training and preparation had been sufficient for this ultimate test of skill and nerve. Time seemed to slow to a crawl as the massive .50 caliber bullet left Sarah's Barrett rifle with a thunderous crack that echoed across the mountain valley. The sound would alert every enemy fighter within miles to their position. But that concern was secondary to the primary mission of eliminating the high-value target who had been responsible for coordinating deadly attacks against coalition forces. Sarah maintained her sight picture through the high-powered scope, tracking the distant figure as the bullet began its incredible journey across the valley. At such an extreme range, the projectile would take several seconds to reach its target, during which time the enemy commander could easily move out of the bullet's path if he detected any threat. The mathematics involved were staggering. The bullet would travel nearly 4 kilometers while dropping hundreds of meters due to gravity and drifting significantly due to wind effects at various altitudes. Her spotter, Sergeant Rodriguez, pressed his eye against his own spotting scope, trying to track the bullet's impact through the haze and heat shimmer that distorted visibility across the vast distance. The waiting was excruciating, as both soldiers understood that their position would soon be compromised, regardless of whether the shot found its target. Enemy fighters would undoubtedly respond to the sound of the Barrett rifle by attempting to locate and eliminate the sniper team. The bullet's trajectory carried it high above the valley floor, following a parabolic arc that Sarah had calculated using a combination of ballistic software, environmental measurements, and intuitive understanding gained through years of experience with extreme-range shooting. The projectile had to overcome air resistance that increased exponentially with distance, while also dealing with wind effects that varied at different altitudes along its path. Through her scope, Sarah watched the target continue moving slowly across the valley floor, apparently unaware that a bullet was already in flight and heading directly toward his position. The enemy commander appeared to be inspecting defensive positions or communicating with subordinates, pausing occasionally to point toward various locations around the valley. His security detail maintained a loose perimeter, scanning the surrounding ridgelines for threats but not expecting an attack from such an incredible distance. Sarah's breathing remained controlled and steady, a technique drilled into her during countless hours of training. Even after firing, maintaining proper form and sight picture was crucial for observing the results and potentially engaging additional targets if necessary. Her heart rate, which had spiked momentarily when she squeezed the trigger, returned to its normal rhythm as she continued tracking the target through her scope. The bullet continued its flight, cutting through air so thin at high altitude that its ballistic characteristics differed significantly from sea-level conditions. Sarah had compensated for these factors in her calculations, but the extreme nature of the shot meant that even tiny variables could affect the outcome. A slight change in wind direction, an error of a few degrees in scope adjustment, or a minor imperfection in the ammunition could result in a complete miss at such ranges. Sergeant Rodriguez provided a running commentary on environmental conditions, monitoring wind speed and direction at their position, while watching for any changes that might affect follow-up shots. The weather in the mountains was notoriously unpredictable, with conditions that could change rapidly and dramatically alter shooting parameters. Both soldiers understood that they might have only one opportunity before enemy forces responded to their position. As the seconds ticked by, Sarah found herself thinking about the extensive training that had prepared her for this moment. The countless hours spent on firing ranges, the complex mathematical equations memorized and practiced until they became second nature, and the physical conditioning required to maintain stability and focus under extreme stress. All of that preparation was now being tested in the most demanding circumstances possible. The target remained visible through Sarah's scope, continuing his inspection of the valley floor while remaining completely unaware of the approaching projectile. The distance was so great that the bullet's supersonic crack would not reach the target's position until after impact, meaning that he would have no audible warning of the incoming threat. This acoustic delay was just one of many factors that made extreme-range shooting so challenging and unpredictable. Sarah's teammates, positioned at other points around their observation post, maintained security while monitoring radio communications and watching for signs of enemy response to the gunshot. They understood that their position would soon become untenable, regardless of the shot's outcome. Enemy forces would undoubtedly attempt to locate and eliminate the sniper team, requiring immediate preparation for extraction or repositioning to a more defensible location. The bullet reached the halfway point of its trajectory, still maintaining sufficient velocity to be lethal upon impact, but beginning to show the effects of air resistance and gravitational pull. Sarah's calculations had accounted for these factors, but the extreme range meant that even small variations in environmental conditions could significantly affect the projectile's path. The mathematics involved were so complex that most military snipers would consider such a shot virtually impossible. Through her scope, Sarah could see the target clearly enough to observe his movements and general appearance, but the details were limited by distance and atmospheric conditions. Heat shimmer rising from the sun-baked valley floor created additional distortion that made precise observation challenging. Despite these limitations, she maintained her sight picture and continued tracking the enemy commander's movement. The security situation around their position was becoming increasingly precarious as enemy radio communications indicated growing awareness of coalition forces operating in the area. Intelligence intercepts suggested that enemy fighters were beginning to deploy towards suspected observation posts, though they had not yet pinpointed the exact location of Sarah's team. The clock was ticking on their ability to remain in position and potentially engage additional targets. Sarah's concentration remained absolute as she watched the target through her scope, waiting for the moment when the bullet would either find its mark or impact harmlessly in the valley floor beyond. The shot represented the culmination of everything she had learned about marksmanship, ballistics, and combat operations. Success would validate years of training and potentially save the lives of coalition soldiers who had been targeted by the enemy commander's operations. The final seconds of the bullet's flight seemed to stretch endlessly as both Sarah and her spotter maintained their observation of the target area. Environmental conditions remained stable, with no sudden changes in wind direction or visibility that might indicate the need for immediate follow-up shots. The enemy commander continued his inspection of the valley floor, pausing occasionally to communicate with members of his security detail. As the bullet approached its target after traveling nearly 4 kilometers through challenging atmospheric conditions, Sarah prepared for the moment of truth. The projectile had overcome tremendous obstacles including extreme distance, variable wind conditions, significant bullet drop due to gravity, and the technical challenges of shooting at high altitude. Whether her calculations and execution had been sufficient would be determined in the next few seconds. The impact, when it came, was visible through Sarah's scope as a small puff of dust that appeared suddenly near the target's position. For a split second, she wasn't certain whether the bullet had found its mark or impacted in the ground nearby. Then she saw the target collapse, confirming that her shot had successfully traveled 3,847 meters to eliminate one of the most dangerous enemy commanders operating in the region. Sergeant Rodriguez confirmed the successful hit through his spotting scope, immediately beginning to pack equipment as enemy radio communications erupted with reports of the attack. Sarah quickly secured her Barrett rifle and prepared for immediate extraction, knowing that their position would soon be overrun by enemy forces responding to the elimination of such a high-value target. The shot had been successful beyond all expectations, but their survival now depended on reaching safety before enemy reinforcements could locate their observation post. The confirmation of the successful shot sent shockwaves through military command structures that extended far beyond the immediate tactical situation in Afghanistan. As Sarah's team executed their emergency extraction procedures, military analysts were already working to verify and document what appeared to be an unprecedented achievement in long-range precision shooting. The initial range measurements, calculated using GPS coordinates and confirmed through multiple independent sources, indicated that the shot had traveled 3,847 meters, shattering every existing record for precision marksmanship. Sarah barely had time to process the magnitude of her achievement as enemy forces began converging on their former position. Radio intercepts revealed that the elimination of the high-value target had triggered a massive response from enemy fighters throughout the region. Multiple groups were moving toward the suspected sniper position, forcing Sarah's team to execute a dangerous extraction through terrain that offered little cover from pursuing forces. The Barrett rifle, still warm from firing, had to be quickly broken down and distributed among team members for the treacherous journey back to friendly lines. Every piece of equipment was essential, but the weight of their gear became a significant burden as they navigated steep mountain paths while avoiding enemy patrols. Sarah found herself carrying not just her personal equipment, but also the knowledge that she had just accomplished something that would be studied and discussed by military marksmen for decades to come. As news of the record-breaking shot spread through military channels, Sarah's commanding officers faced the challenge of balancing operational security with the need to properly document and verify the achievement. The shot had been witnessed by multiple team members and recorded through various technical means, but military protocol required extensive investigation and verification before any official records could be established or announced. The investigation process began within hours of Sarah's team reaching safety at their forward operating base. Military historians, ballistics experts, and marksmanship specialists were brought in to analyze every aspect of the shot, from the environmental conditions at the time of firing to the specific ammunition and weapon systems used. GPS data was cross-referenced with multiple satellite positioning systems to ensure absolute accuracy in range calculations. Sarah found herself subjected to extensive debriefings that covered every detail of the shot, from her initial target acquisition through the complex ballistic calculations that had made success possible. Military investigators wanted to understand not just what had happened, but how it had been accomplished, in order to incorporate the lessons learned into future training programs and operational procedures. The previous world record for a confirmed military sniper kill had stood at 2,475 meters, an achievement that itself been considered nearly impossible when it was established. Sarah's shot had exceeded this benchmark by more than 1,300 meters, representing a quantum leap in demonstrated precision shooting capabilities. The mathematical and technical challenges overcome in achieving such accuracy at extreme range would require military training programs to completely reconsider their assumptions about the limits of human marksmanship. Analysis of the environmental conditions during Sarah's shot revealed the extraordinary complexity of the ballistic calculations involved. The altitude at the firing position created air density conditions significantly different from sea level, while variable wind speeds at different elevations along the bullet's trajectory had required compensation that pushed the boundaries of existing ballistic prediction models. The shot had been accomplished under conditions that most military experts would have considered prohibitive for precision shooting. The Barrett .50 caliber rifle used in the record-breaking shot was subjected to detailed technical analysis to document its condition and capabilities. Military armorers examined every component, from the barrel's rifling characteristics to the precision of the scope mounting system. The specific ammunition lot used was tracked back to its manufacturing source to document the projectile's ballistic characteristics and ensure that all factors contributing to the shot's success were properly understood and recorded. Sarah's training records were extensively reviewed to understand how she had developed the skills necessary for such an extraordinary achievement. Military training experts wanted to identify the specific techniques and educational approaches that had produced such exceptional marksmanship capabilities, with an eye toward incorporating these methods into future SEAL training programs and other special operations curricula. The psychological aspects of the shot received particular attention from military psychologists and performance specialists. The ability to maintain focus and execute complex calculations under the extreme stress of combat conditions was considered as remarkable as the technical marksmanship skills demonstrated. Sarah's mental preparation techniques and stress management methods were studied as potential models for training other special operations personnel. Word of the achievement began spreading through military communities worldwide, generating intense interest from allied nations and special operations units seeking to understand and potentially replicate such capabilities. International military observers requested detailed briefings on the techniques and equipment involved, viewing Sarah's accomplishment as a significant advancement in military marksmanship capabilities that could influence future tactical doctrine. The verification process required several weeks of intensive investigation and analysis, during which Sarah continued her regular duties, while military officials worked to confirm every aspect of the record-breaking shot. Independent ballistics experts were brought in to validate the mathematical calculations, while multiple GPS systems were used to verify the exact distances involved. Every possible factor that could have influenced the shot's success was examined and documented. Media attention began building as rumors of the extraordinary shot circulated through military channels and eventually reached journalists covering military affairs. However, operational security considerations limited the amount of information that could be released publicly, particularly regarding the specific tactics and equipment used. Sarah's identity was initially protected due to the sensitive nature of special operations assignments and the potential security risks associated with public recognition. The official confirmation of the world record came through a carefully worded military press release that acknowledged the achievement while protecting sensitive operational details. Sarah's 847Meter shot was officially recognized as the longest confirmed military sniper kill in history, surpassing the previous record by an unprecedented margin. The announcement generated international media coverage and established Sarah as one of the most skilled marksmen in military history. Recognition of the achievement extended beyond simple record-keeping to include analysis of its broader implications for military tactics and training. The shot demonstrated that properly trained and equipped marksmen could engage targets at ranges previously considered impossible, potentially changing how military planners approached various tactical scenarios. The successful engagement at such extreme range opened new possibilities for force protection and offensive operations. Sarah's achievement also sparked discussions about the role of women in special operations units and combat roles. Her success challenged traditional assumptions about physical requirements for certain military specialties, demonstrating that precision shooting was more dependent on skill, training, and mental discipline than on factors that had historically limited female participation in special operations units. The technical innovations required to achieve such accuracy at extreme range contributed to advances in military equipment and training programs. Improvements in ballistic calculation software, scope technology, and training methodologies were developed based on analysis of Sarah's techniques and the conditions that had made her record-breaking shot possible. As the immediate excitement surrounding the record began to settle, Sarah found herself facing new challenges and responsibilities associated with her newfound status as a military legend. Training commands wanted her expertise for developing new marksmanship curricula, while media organizations sought interviews about her extraordinary accomplishment. The balance between maintaining operational effectiveness and managing public attention would become an ongoing challenge as her military career continued. The months following Sarah's record-breaking achievement brought profound changes to her military career and personal life that extended far beyond the immediate recognition of her marksmanship accomplishments. Military leadership recognized that her unique skills and experience represented a valuable resource that could benefit the entire special operations community through training, mentorship, and continued operational excellence. Sarah was reassigned to the Naval Special Warfare Development Group, where she became instrumental in developing advanced marksmanship training programs for the next generation of SEAL snipers. Her first-hand experience with extreme-range shooting provided insights that could not be replicated through theoretical study alone. The training protocols she developed incorporated lessons learned from her record-breaking shot, pushing the boundaries of what military marksmen thought possible. The new training curriculum that Sarah helped design included advanced ballistic calculation techniques that had previously been considered too complex for field application. Students learned to account for factors that most military snipers had never encountered, including the Coriolis effect at extreme ranges, atmospheric density variations at different altitudes, and complex wind pattern analysis across vast distances. These skills, once considered academic curiosities, became practical necessities for modern precision shooting. Sarah's teaching methods emphasized the psychological aspects of extreme-range shooting as much as the technical skills involved. Students learned meditation techniques, stress management, and focus maintenance that Sarah had used during her record-breaking shot. The mental discipline required for success at such ranges was as challenging to master as the mathematical calculations involved in ballistic prediction. Military equipment manufacturers sought Sarah's input on developing improved weapon systems and accessories for extreme-range shooting. Her recommendations led to advances in scope technology, rifle stability systems, and ammunition design that pushed the boundaries of accuracy and reliability. The Barrett rifle used in her record-breaking shot became the baseline for improvements that would benefit marksmen throughout the military. International military organizations requested Sarah's assistance in developing their own precision shooting programs. Her techniques and training methods were studied by allied forces around the world, contributing to improvements in military capabilities that strengthened coalition effectiveness in various theaters of operation. The diplomatic value of sharing such expertise helped build stronger relationships between allied military forces. Sarah's achievement also sparked academic interest in the physics and mathematics of extreme-range ballistics. University researchers studying projectile motion and atmospheric effects found new applications for their work in military contexts. The practical challenges overcome in Sarah's record-breaking shot provided real-world validation for theoretical models that had previously existed only in academic literature. The psychological impact of Sarah's achievement extended throughout the military special operations community, inspiring other marksmen to push beyond previously accepted limitations. Training scores improved across various units as shooters adopted the techniques and mindset that had made the record-breaking shot possible. The culture of excellence that Sarah represented became a model for other special operations personnel. Media coverage of Sarah's achievement evolved from initial reports focused on the record-breaking aspect to deeper examinations of the skill, training, and dedication required for such accomplishments. Documentary filmmakers and journalists sought to understand not just what had happened, but how Sarah had developed the capabilities that made success possible. Her story became inspiration for young people considering military careers. The tactical implications of extreme-range precision shooting capabilities influenced military planning and strategy development. Combat commanders gained new options for addressing threats that had previously been beyond the reach of conventional weapons systems. The ability to engage targets at ranges exceeding 3 kilometers opened new possibilities for force protection and offensive operations in various combat environments. Sarah's role in advancing women's participation in special operations units became a significant aspect of her legacy. Her success demonstrated that the most demanding military specialties were limited more by training opportunities and organizational assumptions than by physical or mental capabilities. Military policies regarding women in combat roles were influenced by the practical evidence of Sarah's extraordinary achievements. The scientific community took interest in analyzing the human factors that contributed to Sarah's success. Sports psychologists, neurologists, and performance specialists studied the combination of physical coordination, mental discipline, and decision-making abilities that enabled such precision under extreme stress. Their research contributed to broader understanding of human performance optimization in high-pressure environments. Training equipment manufacturers developed new simulation systems based on the conditions and challenges of Sarah's record-breaking shot. Advanced computer modeling allowed students to practice extreme-range shooting scenarios without the logistical challenges and expense of actual long-distance ranges. These simulators incorporated the environmental variables and ballistic complexity that Sarah had mastered in real-world conditions. Sarah's continued operational deployments allowed her to apply and refine the techniques that had made her famous, while mentoring other special operations personnel in combat environments. Her presence on missions provided both practical capabilities and inspirational leadership that enhanced unit effectiveness. The combination of legendary status and continued operational excellence made her one of the most respected figures in special operations. Recognition of Sarah's achievement extended beyond military circles to include civilian marksmanship communities and sporting organizations. Competitive shooters studied her techniques and training methods, adapting military precision shooting principles to sporting applications. The mathematical and technical approaches she pioneered influenced civilian long-range shooting competitions and equipment development. The long-term impact of Sarah's record-breaking shot continued to influence military training and tactics years after the achievement. New sniper schools incorporated her techniques into their curricula, while existing programs updated their instruction to reflect the possibilities she had demonstrated. The boundaries of what military marksmen considered achievable were permanently expanded by her accomplishment. As Sarah's military career progressed beyond the record-breaking shot, she continued to contribute to special operations capabilities through operational excellence, training innovation, and mentorship of younger personnel. Her legacy extended far beyond a single moment of extraordinary marksmanship to encompass broader contributions to military effectiveness and the advancement of human performance under extreme conditions. The record itself, while remarkable, became just one aspect of Sarah's broader impact on military culture and capabilities. Her approach to training, preparation, and execution under pressure provided a model that influenced countless other military personnel across various specialties. The principles she demonstrated in achieving the impossible shot became applicable to many other challenging military tasks requiring precision, calculation, and nerve. Looking back on the achievement years later, military historians and analysts recognize Sarah's shot not just as a record-breaking moment, but as a watershed event that changed fundamental assumptions about human capabilities in military contexts. The 847-meter shot represented a convergence of training, technology, and human excellence that pushed the boundaries of what was considered possible and inspired others to reach for similar levels of achievement. Sarah's story became a testament to the power of dedication, preparation, and unwavering commitment to excellence. From her humble beginnings on a Texas ranch to her status as a military legend, her journey demonstrated that extraordinary achievements were possible for those willing to invest the time, effort, and mental discipline required for mastery. The shot heard around the world became a symbol of human potential realized through determination and skill. The impact of that single moment in an Afghan valley continued to ripple through military communities and beyond, inspiring new generations of service members to push beyond conventional limitations and strive for levels of excellence that might once have seemed impossible. Sarah's legacy lived on not just in record books, but in the enhanced capabilities and elevated aspirations of those who followed in her footsteps.